What's happening, everybody? Welcome into a brand new Crossed Up. Anthony Sanfilippo's here. I'm Bob Wankel, and Anthony, the Phillies are free falling. What is going on? Panic in the streets. No, I kid. But the Phillies did lose 2 out of 3 to the Red Sox this week, and that was coming on the heels of a pretty rough loss on Sunday to the Mets in London. So now you look up all of a sudden, and the Phillies have lost 3 of their last 4. Or and they're not playing particularly great baseball at the moment. And I don't know that anybody should be panicked, but certainly this is not a high point for this team right now. So I want to sort through it today and how concerned should people be? Should they not be concerned at all? And we have some things to talk about. This team has some decisions to make, so I want to get into that today as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't put a lot of stock in it. I think that the like we talked about it last week. The travel was brutal. The days off screwed with the pitchers. Like if these guys go out and have bad games again their next time out, and by these guys I mean Sanchez and Nola specifically. I mean Wheeler was fine. Then we can say, okay, now is there a problem? But I think when you take 8 days off or 7 days off, you're pitching on the 8th day. That's a lot. When you're used to a routine. And I mean, it was obvious that Sanchez had his pitch. He wasn't sharp with his pitches. Nola couldn't throw his curveball to save his life. It's been his best pitch all season. It went 12 straight starts where he was fantastic, and the curveball was electric. And yesterday it just didn't go. It didn't move. It just was right over the plate and getting smacked around. 5 doubles in 1 inning. I mean, that's unbelievable. So I look at it and say, yeah, bad outings, but I'm not going to, have a conniption about it. I think if they should bounce back in their next starts. So yeah, I mean, the lineups haven't been good lineups.
Lineups have been rough. It's been, these lineups come out, the Phillies, they tweet them out and we all see them. And then all the reporters tweet them out. And, my reaction to you the last couple of days has been like, Jesus Christ, this is Bryson Stott hitting cleanup, and like, wow, this is tough, man. So look, I agree with you, and I with Aaron Nola especially, just totally willing to write that off. I mean, he up until yesterday had a 2.77 ERA, and I recognize that he went 8 days in between starts. The thing I feel bad about for his sake is that I think he was actually making a push. Though the Phillies have a lot of candidates to make the All-Star team, he probably cost himself a shot last night, I think, to make the All-Star team out of the National League. I mean, his ERA jumped from 2.77 to 3.48 last night. And certainly he was not helped by the home plate umpire the Phillies have a history with. You and I had a brief exchange about it. Like he was squeezed. I mean, it was one of the worst calls I've seen all season, but like you also have to find a way to bear down, especially once the team gets you back into the game at 4-3.
I mean, it's tough there.
That's tough, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it this way, Bob, and I would argue that you got to bear down and fight through a bad call by an umpire if you have your stuff.
Yeah.
And then you can't let the bad call bother you. No. But he was fighting it from the first inning. He got out of a jam in the first inning by getting that double play, and you saw like he did a fist pump. Like he knew, I think, early that he was going to need some good fortune. And the second inning he got smacked around. He had a good third inning. He went 1-2-3 in the third inning, 3 ground balls. But then it started the fourth inning. It started back up again. He got runners on base, and he's hoping to get out of it there. I think he's looking at it like, if I could get us through 5, just allowing those 4 runs, then it was a bad inning and I survived it. But that not getting that call, that pissed him off. I mean, he said something to the umpire, and you saw him kind of getting a little bit more emotional on the field than Aaron Nola ever gets. And so that lets you know that one really bothered him, because he knew where he was with his stuff, and he knew he didn't have his best stuff. And then here he is throwing a strike to get out of an inning, and he doesn't get the call. And then the next thing you know, it's 3-run homer off the advertisement in deep left center field above the monster. Like, holy shit.
Well, he faced 23 batters last night, gave up 11 hits and walked 2. So it was about as bad as it gets for Aaron Nola last night. Like I said, I always like to say, all right, well, this happened. What do you make of it? I don't really think you can make a lot of it for the reasons that you mentioned. Christopher Sanchez, certainly the night before, also was fighting it. You know, there was a point in the third inning on Wednesday night where Christopher Sanchez threw a couple clean innings, and I actually looked it up, and I'm like, all right, National League ERA leaders, starting pitchers. The Phillies had 4 of the top 5 at that point. And I almost tweeted it out because we've seen the graphic with 4 of the top 6.
Yeah.
But it moved to 4 of the top 5. I said, my God, like maybe I'll tweet this out. But as I saw him fighting his command, I said, I better hold off on this. And, you know, obviously things kind of got away from him as well. And look, the offense is sort of the offense right now. It's an inconsistent group as it is. They've obviously been productive overall, but they're missing parts, and those absences are starting now to add up. You take Brandon Marsh out of the mix, you take Trey Turner out of the mix, now you take JT Realmuto out of the mix, and you know Alec Bohm has cooled significantly. Bryson Stott really hasn't gotten it going on a consistent basis, and you know, the Edmundo Sosa magic has certainly dried up here in recent days. So the difference, though, this week versus last week is that the pitching was so extraordinary that it's masked some of those inconsistencies with the offense. Now, the pitching's had a little bit of a rocky week, and now all of a sudden you're looking up and saying, okay, we've lost 3 out of 4. And by the way, you got to go play an Orioles team right now who is, for my money, maybe the best team in the American League and playing pretty good baseball at the moment. And they're going to come at you with Bradish, Grayson Rodriguez, and Corbin Burns this weekend. You and I had noted on Monday this could be a tough week for the Phillies. I was hoping to see them go 3-3. I think the Phillies would do well to get 1 this weekend. I mean, they got Ranger Suarez on the mound tonight. They're an underdog, and like a fairly sizable one, too. Baltimore was minus 130. Ranger Suarez has been the best starting pitcher in the National League this year. I
wonder if Trey plays tonight.
You think we're going to get the 2 p.m.? Bzz?
I do. Okay. I think we are. I think that
the plan was that he was going to run today, right? And then they kind of left it open-ended after that. I mean,
yeah,
I'm all for being cautious. I applaud the Phillies for the conservative approach.
Yeah.
Don't want to see this guy go on the IL again. But now this week, I'm like, okay, it's time. You know?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I mean,
medicine says it's time.
Yeah, it's been 6 weeks, you know, and he's getting the best possible care. He's a professional athlete, you know, so he knows his body, and he declined a rehab assignment, which tells you he's ready to go.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a matter of, okay, today is 6 weeks today. This is it. I think we're getting the alert today that he's coming back and Weston Wilson gets sent back down. That's what I think is coming. We'll see.
Well, they could certainly use that. I mean, look, Edmundo Sosa has been a godsend for this team. I mean, what he has done for them this season is nothing short of, I don't want to say season saving or anything like that, but he really helped them go on that run. I mean, when Trey Turner got hurt, it was like, uh-oh. And then the Phillies just took off, and they just kept winning and winning and winning. And Edmundo Sosa was very much a part of that. He's been very good defensively at shortstop. I mean, what a job he's done. But last seven games, he's hitting 208 with a 519 OPS. I mean, this is what we talked about when everybody said, hey, put Trey Turner in the outfield, or can you find a way to keep Edmundo Sosa in the lineup every day? All of a sudden, that swing looks a little bit slower. Fastball's getting in on him a little bit more. He's cheating, so now he's diving off the plate at sliders, low and away. Like, he looks a little bit tired, or worse, overexposed. So he has done a great job bridging the gap, but it's kind of time to, I think, get Edmundo Sosa back into a role where you're seeing him maybe 2-3 times a week and not 6.
Yeah, I think so. And that's why I've been, you know, having this conversation with a couple other people as well. Was on WIP with Jody Mack earlier in the week, and I said to him the same thing. I said, you know, Sosa's been great. I don't want to take anything away from the guy. But if you remember last year, he got off to a really good start, and then he hit a wall, and he was playing every day. And it was just a matter of how long can a player like Edmundo Sosa sustain all-star level play. And if he could do it for, 4 weeks, that's fantastic. You can't expect him to do it for more than 4 weeks. And I think that we're starting to see, he gave the Phillies 4 great weeks, a 5th week that was okay, and now the 6th week is kind of like, all right, it's time to get the other guy back. And that's not a knock on Sosa, because he is what he is. He's an excellent backup infielder who can play a couple days a week, give you really good defense at shortstop, maybe get a big hit or a couple big hits, and really an integral part of a championship caliber team. I'm not trying to diminish what he's done or what he is, but he's not going to give you Trey Turner production for more than he did. The fact that he gave it to you as long as he did is a win in and of itself.
No question about it. I guess I'm sort of interested, if you just look back at this series that went by with the Red Sox, in addition to maybe some London fatigue, one of the things that kind of, I guess, sort of played itself out was Rob Thompson made a decision in Wednesday night's game. And I think that we've sort of touched on this in the past. It feels like some fans, I don't know how to say this, I feel like they don't know how to process when everything doesn't go well, right? Like, so, hey, this is why I'm concerned about the Phillies after Sunday's game. Is Alvarado really a 9th inning guy? Can he handle it? And, Rob made this decision. Rob made that decision. Wednesday night, they lose a game where they're winning 4-0, and it was kind of like that was a foreign result to us. The Phillies get a 4-0 lead this season, and it's pretty much automatic.
Yeah.
Things don't go well, though. Obviously, Christopher Sanchez loses it. And if you go back and you look at that game, they get into the 5th. They have a 4-1 lead at this point. Sanchez starts getting knocked around a little bit, and they go to Jose Ruiz in the 5th inning. And people are like, how could you go to Jose Ruiz in that spot? Rob, what are you doing? Rob this, Rob that. Like, this is why I don't trust the Phillies, because this guy, they win in spite of him. We've had a lot of conversations about Rob Thompson. You and I think, both agree that maybe sometimes tactically we don't fully understand some of the moves. We also acknowledge that those moves might not be Rob Thompson's alone. There's definitely a collaborative approach, and a lot of this stuff is mapped out before games even begin. I think people do need to realize that. But there's this idea that, like, that was such a conservative play. Why not go to one of your main dudes in that spot, try to put out the threat, and go from there? Did you have any problem with Jose Ruiz in the 5th inning with that lead evaporating?
So, no, I didn't, because I get what they do. Like, everybody just assumes it's Turnbull there, right? Because he's the guy who can give you multiple innings. They don't want to bring Turnbull into a game with runners on base. They want him to start with a clean inning so it feels like he's starting. And I know that sounds like, to some people that sounds stupid, but there is rational belief in that.
Well, if you're a starting, when you consider the layoff that he had.
Well, I was going to get into that too.
My God.
Yeah, he hadn't pitched since June 1st, so it was 10 days or 11 days off, whatever it was. And so, like, you look at it, and really, when there's a starting pitcher who's now pitching out of the bullpen, to just immediately come in and throw out of the stretch with guys on base is kind of a foreign feeling. It's different. You're much better go in there, get out of the windup, and create your own inning and pitch your own inning from scratch. So I have no problem with them going to Ruiz in that spot. But I just think that was part of the continued international travel fatigue, because Ruiz didn't look good. There was a couple defensive miscues too, which didn't help in that inning just prior to him coming in. And then once he's out and Turnbull comes in, like, he's not sharp. He looks like a guy who hasn't pitched in 2 weeks. So, like, I don't have a problem with the manager in those moments, because I think that it was what it was, and they had to get pitchers some innings, and guess what? They just didn't have their stuff.
I mean, the other thing that I look at is that Jose Ruiz came into that spot with a 1.88 ERA. I mean, he allowed in 13 appearances, there were 2 games in which he had allowed runs.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not like you're bringing in some scrub. I mean, I know that Jose Ruiz, when you look at that bullpen, is probably the last guy out the door, but I mean, in the 5th inning, I mean, I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know what people expect there. Do you want Matt Strahm in that spot? Like, I don't know. I mean, I go back to the game in London on Sunday, 6th inning.
Yeah.
tight game, like I'm down for that. I'm down for Strahm there. I'm certainly not down for Gregory Soto, which, by the way, we talked about this on Monday, but what you saw last night is probably where Gregory Soto needs to be right now.
And that's fine, because I thought his outing wasn't terrible. He had a few pitches that were non-competitive. It's funny because he threw a ball that was about a foot and a half off the plate, and Stubbs had a lunge to catch it.
Yeah.
And the camera panned over to Rob Thompson, who never makes an expression. And he had a look on his face like, oh my God, here we go again.
Yeah.
But to Soto's credit, he kind of got through it. And sometimes that's what it takes, right? If to get the confidence back, it takes you, even if you're not throwing great. I look back like to the first outing Dominguez had after he got lit up at the end of April. And it was like, all right, well, it wasn't great, but he got through it. And then he's been great since, right? So sometimes that's what it takes. And I kind of thought an inning and a third out of Soto last night that was, unspectacular, but also not damaging, is probably the kind of outing he needed to kind of try and get back to the pitcher he once was.
Yeah, I thought in the second game where they faced Pivetta in that game, I said I was texting, I was actually texting Jack Fritz, and I said, Pivetta, like in previous years, the Phillies would lose this game all the time. Like Pivetta would come out, everyone was making jokes about it earlier in the day, like, get ready for 7 innings, 1 hit tonight, like here it comes. And like they just clobbered him right from the start. And they actually could have done a little bit more damage as it played out. But to their credit, they get on him and they drop the 4 runs early. And I'm thinking, man, this team really is different. Like this is one that they just lose every time. This team is built different. And then I look like an idiot 2 hours later when everything kind of goes to shit and they lose the game 8-6. I will say it is strange. And the London thing, I think, plays such a part of it. But you go on Sunday with a 3-run lead in the middle of the game, you end up losing. You have the 4-run lead, 3-run lead by the 5th on Tuesday night or Wednesday night, whatever it was. I'm getting all my days mixed up now. And you lose. Like, it's just like, that's so uncharacteristic of them. Like, they have not had many losses like that. And so to see them have 2 losses like that in such a short span, 2 out of 3 games is different. It's different. And then last night, obviously, was just non-competitive for most of it. So they've got some work to do here. I'm not overly concerned. I won't be even – I kind of can promise you that, we'll talk about things if they don't go well in Baltimore this weekend come Monday. But I don't think I can really get myself overly worked up about any of this right now. Now they get back next week and they continue this, I'll say, okay,
Can I give you a positive?
Is it going to be Nick Castellanos?
No. Although
right,
he's not been bad.
Yeah.
And Schwarber, June Schwarber finally arrived in Boston. Mm-hmm. That was good. But I'll give you this one because I think this matters. Whit Merrifield. 4 straight games of the hit, had 2 hits yesterday, getting a lot better swings on balls. Mm-hmm. I know he had the error on Wednesday night that kind of undid that inning a little bit, right? But I mean,
that back-breaking error, he had a really nice week.
Well, no, but I look at that. But I look at that error too, and I think that's not like an error in judgment. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. I think he's trying to make a play there.
Trying to make a play, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't mind those errors as much as I mind errors in judgment. Like I was a little bit more disappointed in David Dahl throwing the ball to the cutoff guy at third base.
He doesn't really seem to know where to throw the ball pretty much ever. Yeah. I've noticed that over the last week or so. I'm like, man, the guy doesn't really quite seem to get it.
Yeah. So like that one bothers me because that's a mental error, right? That's not an error trying to make a play. But I think getting back to my original point, like Merrifield played a lot more. He's been playing a lot more and he's getting hits, and it might not be, home runs or anything like that. And his average is still sucky because he got off to such a bad start. But if this is the Whit Merrifield that you get when you use him, then you're okay. You're okay having him as a bat off the bench, starting a couple times a week and whatever. Like he looked a lot more like the Whit Merrifield from Kansas City in the last 4 or 5 games than he had the first 60 of the season.
When I kind of take stock of where they're at right now, I am not concerned that the pitching is going to enter some massive period of regression. I'm not there. Maybe like you said, if you go through another turn in the rotation or what have you, get through another 2 or 3 series and you see these guys taking a consistent step back, maybe then you start to talk about that. But right now, I'm not there at all. And then I look at the trending direction of certain things, and it looks like Marsh will be back this weekend. You are speculating that Trey Turner could be available as soon as Friday night. Awesome. So that'll certainly be a boost. I look at what Kyle Schwarber has done, and you look now, and certainly he was very much helped by his series against the Red Sox. He was 6 for 11 in the series. He had the double that cleared the bases last night. He had the home run. I guess how many home runs did he hit? 2 home runs the other night.
And that ball yesterday would have been a home run almost any other ballpark.
Yeah, I tweeted actually is 18 out of 30 parks.
Really?
So,
it shouldn't.
18 out of 30.
I would have thought it would have been more than that. I mean, it's 420 to dead center in Boston.
Yeah,
and it's higher, and they have that higher wall there. I'm surprised it was only 18.
Yeah, I mean that's per Statcast anyway, but who knows? But you just look at what he's done lately, and you look at his stats, and certainly it's been helped by the last few games, but he's knocking on the door at an 800 OPS again all of a sudden. He's hit 370 over his last 7. He's hit 298 over his last 15. You feel good about the direction of Kyle Schwarber right now, just based on these past few games. And Nick Castellanos is really interesting. Like, it continues to kind of be a fight for him. He hasn't heated up to the point where you go like, oh yeah, here we go. But like last 7 games, 241. OPS is almost 900. Like he's been better lately. He's up to 215 on the season. I think he's at a 641 OPS. Like, okay, like there's been incremental progress. It hasn't been a total train wreck for him these past few weeks.
Really, if you go back to April 30th, I mean, it's if you really go back to April, and I don't have the exact stats. I didn't do it the last couple games, but it's really like it's not awesome numbers, but it's like
functional.
It's a batting average close to 250, an OPS of about 780. Yeah. It's like you take that, right? That's fine. It was just April was so damn bad that it makes him look worse than he's really played for probably the last 6 weeks.
So where I'm kind of going with this, it's like, well, if you think the pitching's okay and you think that a lot of your primary hitters are okay, it kind of comes back to a conversation that we've had a couple times now. And I'm kind of going to package these guys together, but I guess my level of concern about each player is a little bit different. Alec Bohm, Bryson Stott. One of the big things here, one of the ideas was that these guys were going to take steps forward, especially Bryson Stott. It really felt like he cleared a huge hurdle a season ago and that he had arrived and that we were going to get this borderline all-star level player. And he went through a stretch earlier this season where we actually had that conversation. I'm like, hey, could he do it in 24? And he has since cooled. And I'll get to him in a minute, but Alec Bohm is the guy that this week, and we talked about him on Monday, and I feel like we were about a day too soon because it felt like this week, for the first time, the internet, sports radio, we're all of a sudden like, damn, Alec Bohm's been pretty bad lately. Like, and I'm like, yeah, like he's been bad for a while now. But I feel like this was the series where people started to realize it. And it's frustrating, I think, when you look at Alec Bohm, because again, like certainly you look at the season and you're going like, all right, look, the guy's hitting 286. He's knocked in 52 runs. Like that's really productive. I still think he probably is an all-star, although with each passing day, that is kind of becoming jeopardized, I would say. He has been really bad now for about a month and a half. And I mean, specifically just within the last 30 games. And it's not even just the last 30 games. It's that if you chop that down to 15, chop that down to the last 10, it's getting worse. Like he cooled down and now he's falling off the cliff. So, I mean, just kind of give this a little bit of context. His last 30 games, he's hitting 220 with a 256 on base percentage. I mean, that just that's not very good. And you get down to these last 7 games, he's hitting a $143 with a 194 on base percentage. He's not really walking. He's not hitting for power. He's not really doing a whole lot at all. And like when he's gotten hits lately, it's been like dink, dunk, flare. And we're back to this thing with him where you're like, you have this massive guy who's strong as hell, 6'5", 220. He's shown you in spurts that he can be a really dangerous hitter. Where the hell has he been for the last month and a half?
Yeah, it's not good. And I think that the Phillies recognize it, which is why they took him out of the lineup yesterday. Kind of say, yeah, you need a day. You just need a day off, and then we'll get you back out there. But yeah, that's a concern. And I think it's a concern that we've kind of had in the back of our minds, Bob, for a while, even when he was going well, because we all knew that he couldn't maintain and keep up the level that he was. I mean, he was trending toward numbers that were just unreachable, right, for a guy of his ability. And so, like, we knew that there was going to be a regression, but the question was, how much of a regression would there be? Is this enough of a growth in his game and his approach to the plate that even though there will be a regression, he's still going to be a 300 hitter. He's still going to drive in 120 runs. He's still going to serve a great purpose as the cleanup hitter in this lineup, protecting Bryce Harper. And then you started to see it slowly go, right? Started to get away from him a little bit. And I think that when we first were talking about this was, I don't know if it was last week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, when I forget who it was now, what game it was, but there was an intentional walk of Bryce Harper to get the Bohm. And you look at it and say, with the way that if you look at this guy's numbers and the way he hits with 2 outs, runners in scoring position, like, I think it might have been the Milwaukee series, if I'm not mistaken. Like, why would you put another runner on base with a runner on second? This guy hits 370 with runners in scoring position, and you're going to do that? You're going to go after him, and Harper's been struggling, and it makes sense because there are a lot of people in baseball are seeing the same thing. There's something not right with his swing at the plate right now that was going really well earlier. He's beating the ball into the ground again. He's grounding into those double plays again. He's not hitting those line drives. Do I think it'll come back? I do. I do think it'll come back some. I'm not saying like, he's done, forget it. But I also worry that what we saw in April and the first part of May may not ever be back in Alec Bohm's game to that level.
He is, and again, like I know he can hit a little bit. But he has 2 home runs in his last 38 games.
Yeah,
like he's a corner infielder, dude, and he's not a good one at that defensively. Like I know he's going to hit 280 to 300. And like his OPS, you know where he's going to finish? He's going to finish at 760, 770 OPS. He's going to hit some doubles. He's going to knock in 100 runs. And in December, we're going to look at it and say, like, pretty good year. But like and you're not going to have superstars at every position. You can't pay everybody crazy money at every position. But like your third baseman has to be able to produce a little bit more power than that.
Yeah.
Like 2 home runs in 38 games. Like, come on, man. Like, this isn't like Mickey Morandini in 1995 for playing second base.
He's your cleanup hitter. He's got to have more.
For Christ's sake.
Yes, he's got to hit more. Got to hit
so
more.
That's where I kind of just say, like, that's my criticism. And if you're going to be, and I'll get to the defense in a second, but like his last 35 games, he's hitting 221. Since May 1st, 35 games, he's hitting 221. He's had 140 at-bats. He has 11 doubles, no triples, 2 homers. He's walked 5 times in his last 151 plate appearances. I mean, that's not going to get it done. You're not hitting for any power. You're not walking, and you're hitting 220. Like, that just isn't going to get it done.
No.
So he woke up on the morning of May 1st with a 362 batting average. His OPS was north of 1,000. And, you know, today he's at 286, and he's down to 797. And it's just the same conversation. Like, is he taking the next step? Has he finally broken out? And like, maybe I got caught up in the moment a little bit. And I said, maybe it is different for this guy right now. Maybe this year he is showing us something a little bit different about his game. You know, he's 27 years old now. He's been in the league for 5 years. Maybe he is taking that next step. And right now, I mean, like, the overall numbers are fine, but like, this has been a prolonged stretch of just kind of killing him. And not to mention, like you said, like, he's hitting cleanup. He's hitting behind Bryce Harper. So what kind of strain are you putting on Bryce Harper when you have that behind him?
Yeah,
what does that look like if this is about October and like winning the World
Series?
Well,
what I'm sure we're going to get to.
We're going to get to October, and you're going to have that behind Bryce Harper.
No. We're going to get to what I meant. We're going to get to in conversation because I think that's got to be the target for July 31st for Dave Dombrowski.
Like someone that's good enough to protect Harper in this lineup.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. We'll get there in a second.
Yeah.
Real quick, just to kind of finish the thought with Bohm. 18 qualified major league third baseman this season. When you look at defensive runs saved, he's 14 out of 18th. Out of 18 total third baseman, not great. His fielding percentage is 16th out of the qualified 18 third basemen. So you're not getting very good defense. You're certainly not getting much at the plate. And, he has to be better. Last night he was sat down for a day, and hopefully he figures it out. Because regardless of where you're at on Alec Bohm, I know some people listening to this probably think he's fantastic. Other people I know kind of don't love his game. I don't think he's this bad. So they need to – and I don't think he's as good as we saw in April. Like, I don't think he's that guy. I don't.
Right.
But they've got to even out a little bit at some point, and he's got to be better now.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned his defensive metrics. We talked about the play where David Dahl throws the wrong guy.
I thought Alec Bohm lit that game on fire defensively.
He needs to make that play.
I agree.
Like, that's a ground ball that he makes that play, they're out of the inning.
He took it was a ball that required one step to his left. And he kind of dove, and you thought like, oh, damn, tough play. Like, a good third baseman will make that.
If you rewatch it in slow motion and you're like, oh, wow, he really missed that.
Yeah.
that's a ball the third baseman's got to get.
It probably, if I'm not mistaken, I believe there was an opportunity to turn a double play on that ball.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's the game. It changed the game.
It changed the entire game.
It changed the
and
entire
that's not
game.
wrong on TV that he's getting picked on. That's not dropping a pop up. That's not trying to barehand a chopper to third. That was like come on.
Can I reiterate something about TV? that they were at it again yesterday. Like, I don't know. This whole notion that the drop off from Real Muto to Stubbs and Marchand when it comes to calling a game. Look, JT could be a great, signal caller behind the plate. But let's be honest. He was the signal caller last year behind the plate, right? For most of those games. And those pitchers didn't have as good a seasons as they're having this year. Right. So why were we not putting criticism on the game that the catcher was calling last year when they weren't pitching as well? But now all of a sudden he gets all the praise for the way that the pitchers are pitching, just because you had 2 starts back to back where guys who had 8 days off didn't pitch as well. So, they're going to miss JT. And everybody buys into it. And it drives me crazy. Look, do I think that it matters a little bit, as far as rhythm for a pitcher, knowing that a guy's going to call certain pitches and knows how you like to pitch, and the other guy's got to kind of figure it out a little bit or get more used to it? Yeah, sure. Do I think it makes the difference between giving up 8 runs and 11 hits and giving up 2 runs on 2 hits? No.
No, I certainly agree. Look,
it's on the pit. That's more on the pitchers than it is on the catcher. There's going to be an
adjustment phase. Like, it for certain guys that have thrown to JT consistently, yeah, no doubt. Like, of course there's going to be an adjustment phase. But I do not think that the results of the last 2 nights have anything to do with Garrett Stubbs.
Or Marchand.
Yeah,
or Marchand. Yeah, no, because literally, and they brought it up last night. It bothered me more last night because Stubbs has caught 3 prior to last night. Had caught Nola 3 times. Yeah. In the last 5 starts. One was a shutout. One was 1 run with 3 hits. One was 2 runs, 2 hits. So why all of a sudden is the game last night?
It is kind of interesting what they, as a group, and this isn't to start getting into them specifically, all that much, but it is interesting, the talking points and the things that they're willing to kind of go in on, and then the things that they don't. Like I said, I texted you right away. I was like, Bohm should have had that ball. That was a nightmare play and what turned out to be a big spot.
Yeah.
You don't get a peep of it. And you're just like, are we not is it, you don't want to pile on Alec Bohm at the moment because he's going through it, or what is it? You know, and I don't know. I don't know. So look, I mean, the only reason why like I bring up the Bohm defensive metrics too is like because it's another. Just while we're on this, I'm kind of glad you brought this up. Like, I'm tired of hearing about Alec Bohm's improved defense. Like, oh, Bobby Dickerson's got him out there, and oh man, like Alec Bohm's really. I'm like, okay, like, and nothing on Bobby Dickerson. He's a great infield coach, right? Like,
Yeah.
It's not that. It's just like, dude, like, it's not that much better. Like, it's functional-ish. Like,
yeah, well, that's the thing, and
it's like, okay, like, it's cool that he had a meltdown, and it didn't totally like sink his career and ability to play third base for the next 2 seasons. Like, that's great, but like, please stop selling me on this idea that like, oh, he's actually turned himself into an above average third baseman. There's nothing, no eye test, no metric, no nothing that suggests that Alec Bohm is even an average defensive third baseman. He's just not.
He's passable.
He will sometimes make a play where you're like, damn, pretty nice play. He'll make a throw from the line and you're like, strong arm, or he'll lay out and get a ball and you're like, oh, look, like, cool, he can do it. But like, over the course of 162, he's not an average third baseman. He's just not. No. He's passable. You can play him over there, but he better hit if you're going to do it.
Right. So, it's exactly right, Bob. And that's the thing. What it is that he was a disaster at third base, and he's improved to be passable. It's kind of like the same thing with Castellanos in right field, right? Yeah. I mean, Castellanos was not a good outfielder, and now he's an adequate outfielder. Like, I think he's probably taking more strides than Bohm has.
When the ball goes to right field, you think like, all right, if that guy can get his body to the ball, probably catch it.
He'll probably catch it, right? I mean, so he's become an adequate outfielder, but he's not an above average outfielder, right? So it's the same thing with Bohm. He went from being not good at all to being, all right, we can put him there. He's not a DH. We could play him there. You know, that's what Alec Bohm is at third base.
I've used up all of my ascending Phillies players anxiety. Just quickly with Stott. Like, I mean, look, the highs aren't as high with him. The lows aren't quite as low, but like overall, you know, they need a little bit more out of him. They do.
I was hoping for more in Boston. Like, I thought you put him
the green monster.
Oh my God. The way he hits the ball to left field, it's like, this is perfectly set up for him to kind of have the breakout here. And he really didn't. And it was just like, yeah. It was the one I was like, oh no.
I don't like
this opportunity.
Let's give that a weekend. I actually have some stuff on him, but I don't need to go too deep into it. Like, it's just like the contact profile, like the exit velocity. I'll give that a little bit more time before we take the lid off of that one. But I think with Alec Bohm, we're there, and I think it was topical to bring this up again because it felt like I said this week was like the first week where people were like, you know, what's the deal here? The other thing I want to talk about before we get to the deadline thing, because I actually do want to have a conversation about that. You know, Weston Wilson is the move for Trey Turner when that happens, and that's imminent. What's the move when Brandon Marsh returns? And it looks like that may be as early as Saturday.
Yeah.
So just to kind of reset here, Johan Rojas is the only one with an option. So if you want to keep Christian Pache and David Dahl and Johan Rojas, that's the only way to do it, is to send Johan Rojas down. Will they do that? And if they don't do that, Anthony, what are they going to do here?
Yeah, so I don't think they're going to do it, although I think that's what they should do. And I think that keeps everything kind of intact. It keeps the cohesiveness of the clubhouse and the locker room. You know, okay, Rojas isn't here right now, but he's still part of the team. He's probably going to be back later this season. Well, you know, and he'll be better for it at that point. He'll go down there, you know, lead off for the Iron Pigs, get that swing right, and get back up here, and he'll be great. Like, I think that's the better choice. But there's part of me that thinks that they're going to DFA Pache, and maybe they don't look at that as a big loss. And you know, he's a very good defensive outfielder. He's got a big hole in his swing. Maybe strikes out too much. He's okay against lefties, but not great. And he's kind of repetitive when it comes to Rojas. He hits the ball with a little more authority than Rojas does, but that's not saying much. I wonder, though, the only reason I'm not saying 100% that's going to happen is Pache is another one of those vibes guys in that clubhouse. He's loved in that clubhouse. And I wonder if you take him out of that mix, if that impacts the players more. That's the only reason I question it. And I don't know, man. David Dahl's done enough for me to, even though he was 0 for 4 last night, and like I said, he had the bad throw in my mind the other night. I think he's done enough for me to be a left-handed bat on the bench for the rest of this team, rest of this year. I don't think you move on from him. Maybe you do. I mean, I don't know. I mean, do you get rid of that bat just to keep two of the same outfielder in Pache and Rojas? Like, I don't know exactly what they're going to do. My head tells me they're going to DFA Pache.
It feels like to me, especially with Real Muto out, like I think you're searching for some offense here.
Yeah.
And so when I get righties, like what I want to see now, like starting this weekend, presumably, is like you get a right-handed pitcher. I want Dahl and Marsh out there together.
Well, that's an interesting thing that you say that, because,
and I don't care about the defensive limitations.
Here's the reason why I think that's interesting that you say that. So we know Marsh had his first rehab game in Reading last night. He DH'd 3 hits, great. He's got his second rehab game in Reading tonight. He's playing center field. Why is he playing center field and not left field in a rehab assignment? Yeah. I mean, especially if you're worried about him getting, you want to be careful with the hamstring. Why would you put him in a place where he's got to run more?
Yeah.
Right? So the fact that he's playing center field in Reading tonight, to me, is an indicator that they plan on playing him there more when he gets back. And they're willing to sacrifice some defense to have more offense, at least in the short term.
It's just a hard question to answer. And at the end of the day, are you winning or not winning a World Series because you DFA'd Christian Pache? Like, I doubt it.
Right.
My thing is with Johan Rojas, like you could say, well, it's kind of unfair to him. Like you asked him to basically say, like, hey, if you can hit 220 for us, you're doing your job and you're going to have a role. And like, he's hitting 233 and like, that's cool. In the last 7 games, he's hitting over 300. I mean, like, I know that they're all like 4-hoppers that he's like beating out. Like I feel like 80% of his singles are like bloops and
it's really, it's like frustrating to me because I watch and I want to see a guy get a good hit.
Yeah.
And this guy just beats the ball into the ground and it's like
100 miles an hour and
the one yesterday, it was like it hit right in front of the plate, but it went about 120 feet in the air, and he was able to leg it out. So but
the thing I come back to though is like he has more at bats this season. He has 31 more at bats this season than he did last year. But like he's got, do you know how many extra base hits he has this season in 180 at bats?
Is it like 9?
It's like 6.
Is it 6?
6.
I was being
he's
generous.
Got 8 triple, 3 doubles, and 2 home runs.
Yeah.
And he's walked 7 times in 187 plate appearances.
Yeah.
So like he doesn't walk, he cannot drive the ball. Like, and again, like it's not like I don't think it's not like I'm out on him or like I don't think he has a future or any of that. But like, do you really want to part ways with a useful player to have like for that?
Right.
Like that's the issue. It's not like, oh my God, I think Christian Pache is going to be a 10-year player here, or that like you're going to need him to win a championship. But like, do you really want to close the door on a functional player and hurt your depth?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, Matt Gelb was able to talk to Dombrowski up in Boston. And in lieu of a story on last night's game, put a story out today with his one-on-one interview with Dombrowski. And one of the questions that he asked Dombrowski was how he assesses Johan Rojas' season so far. I'm going to read you Dombrowski's answer because I think it's a telling one. He goes, I'm not going to go in depth and publicly analyze our guys, but he's probably played in some ways the way we would have anticipated. I wasn't expecting much more offense. Let's say he drove in 50 runs this year, which he still has a chance to do, and hit half a dozen homers and stole 30 bases. Well, I can't say I would have anticipated much more from an offensive perspective. Early in the season, I didn't think he played center field like he was capable of playing center field. He's been better lately. He needs to do that because we don't have him on the team for offensive prowess. We have him to make every play out there, and I know he can do it. Mm-hmm. That's his response. It wasn't a glowing response. It was basically like, we'll take this, but you got to be better in the field than you've been.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know. Like when I read that, like in my head, it wasn't like, oh, he hasn't been as glowing as maybe Rob Thompson has talking about Rojas. And so it makes me wonder if Dombrowski looks at it and says, yeah, it's better for us to keep him in the organization, but use the option and keep the depth guys like Pache and Dahl as 4 and 5 with Marsh in the outfield.
Okay, so now that in mind, let's talk about the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Are you of my belief, that you cannot add a fringe piece? Like, you've got to go out and get a dude. Like, this is the year to go get the dude. I don't care about vibes. I don't care.
Yeah.
Weren't the Phillies vibes so good last year, Anthony? They were the best vibes in baseball. What the hell did that get? Look, I'm not saying blow up the chemistry of the team. I'm not. I get it. Like, what they have going on, and like we stuck together and we want to run it back, and we're going to show everyone, very, very important. You can still keep that mindset and bring in a player of significant consequence.
The question is, who is that player? Because there's not many of them that you can consider as a definite to be available.
Yes.
And so that's the thing. Right now, there's only 5 teams in Major League Baseball who you say, yeah, they're not going to be in the playoff race.
Yes.
And they don't particularly have those types of players, with the exception of, Chicago really having Luis Robert, but you got to give up the world for that guy. I mean, they're going to have to give up.
Ask me this though, and I think he's going to get moved. Do you think he's going to get moved?
If somebody gives the right package, you're going to have to give up 3 top prospects probably and a major league caliber player.
So let me just ask you this.
That's what I think is going to have to go.
Rather than just ask, do you think that the Phillies should do it? What happens if 2 of the other teams involved are A, the Atlanta Braves, B, the Los Angeles Dodgers? Like, can you afford to allow that to happen?
Right. No, it's a good point. And sometimes the best moves are defensive moves to prevent other teams from getting the same player. I was on Fantastic Sports Show on Fox last night, and they asked me to come up with a trade for the Phillies. I was like, all right, and they put it up on the screen. And so this is what I came up with. If they were trading for Luis Robert, again, because we don't know who else is going to be available, I said, this is what you would have to send back to the White Sox. You tell me if you agree that this would get it done. Johan Rojas as your major league caliber player. Justin Crawford, Mick Abel, and Brian Rincon, one of your shortstop prospects.
Well, I guess the question is,
because I don't think they're going to trade Painter or Aiden Miller. So
how does
that's why I didn't include it.
So I think Rojas is the major league player. Yep. I think that Crawford is involved for sure. And then, how does the league view Mick Abel at this point? Because we all certainly see what's happened here. His star has fallen. He's not had a very good year this season. My question is, like, does Kaba come into play? Is he the guy?
Well, that's why I
agree that they're going to start all conversations with, like, you're not getting Painter, you're not getting Miller.
Yeah.
So, like, is he the guy? Like, is that enough? Like, I don't know if that's enough. I don't know.
All right. Do you have to throw another player in?
You might.
Do you have to throw in, like, a Gabriel Rincones or that Aldeguerri kid who's had a decent season?
Do you think, like, I guess, do you think that they would be willing to do it? Like, do you think they'd be willing to do it?
If they're not willing to give up a couple of their top 5 prospects in a year coming off of missing the World Championship 2 years ago by 2 games, missing going back to the World Series in what would have been a probable win against Texas by 1 game last year, and getting off to the best start in the franchise's history this year, saying we're going after the World Series, and you're not willing to give up 2 prospects to go get the player that you think makes that difference, then you're not doing it right.
From the shortstop perspective, obviously Starlin Cava's star has risen here significantly.
Yeah. So if it has to be Cava,
Miller's coming up though. If Miller's your third base, they have all these infielders. You have you have Stott.
So let me ask you this:
here long term, right?
Let me ask you this: if it's Cava instead of Rincon, does that get it done?
I mean,
it's Crawford, Cava, and Abel and Rojas. Does that get it done?
Probably. I wouldn't go beyond that. If it said if you said, well, you have to sub out one of those guys for Miller, or you have to sub out one of those guys, maybe even throw in a lesser prospect, get rid of keep Abel, and we need Painter. No, I don't think I can do. I don't think I could do those 2 guys. But if you came to me and said look, we think you have enough to get this done, not including those 2 guys, I'd say, all right, go ahead, write it down. And I don't want to live too much in the moment, but you've got a chance to win a World Series this year. You've got to win the World Series this year. You have to win the World Series this year. You just do.
Yeah. I make the move, and I think that they have to, even if it's not Luis Robert. Because again, the one luxury, I'll give Dombrowski this luxury that he has, getting out to a 9-game lead over the Braves and this record that you have, the best record in the National League. You have the luxury of waiting until the last minute to see what other teams fall out of the playoff race over the course of the next 47 days, and what other names might come up, and I wasn't thinking about him 6 weeks ago. Now this player's suddenly available that wasn't considering.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so you have that luxury. So it doesn't necessarily say
the other thing is though, there is a certainty, a financial and economic certainty that comes with Robert. You have him for another 3 seasons.
Yeah, after this year. So
that's why when people say well, the White Sox want a Juan Soto deal for him. Okay, there is at least an understanding that if the guy stays healthy, he's going to be a premium player for you, and he doesn't cost a ton. I think it's 15, 15, and 20. If I'm not mistaken, no, 15, 20, and 20.
Yeah.
And then he's an unrestricted free agent after the 27 season. And it's a need. They have a need out there. So, can I swallow getting rid of Justin Crawford for 3 years of this guy? I think so. I think I'd be comfortable doing that. Now, again, do they trade him? They've got to trade him. Right. Does another team come in with just a banana land offer? Maybe. The name Kyle Tucker's gotten kicked around here a lot lately, right?
Right. But I don't know. I think Houston's going to try and stay in it personally.
So do I. And I know I said a week or 2 ago, I watched them. They were on MLB Network, or it was a pan into them. They were playing the Giants the other night, and they had a 3-1 lead. I want to say it was maybe Tuesday night. It was the opening game of that series. They had a 3-1 lead in the 10th inning. Yeah. And it was just it was Montero came in, and it was bam, 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 walk off. And I'm man, this team sucks. You talk about bad vibes. Astros are maybe bottom feeder bad vibes once you get past the Marlins and White Sox. Yeah. They have big time loser energy this year. I don't know. I don't know. They're going to try to stay in it. I just don't know if they can. I was of the mindset that the AL West was letting them stay in that race. I think I said it 2 weeks ago. Yeah. I'm you know who's going to win that division, right? But man, they just can't get it going.
Yeah, and Seattle's played a little bit better lately too. So even though they can't hit,
lose to the White Sox last
night. Yeah, but they can't hit either. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, just kind of to put a bow on the whole thing here. It's where, I said, is Johan Rojas really going to be a part of this? Come October, I guess maybe. But I hope as an extra guy. I cannot be your everyday center. I just don't think he can be your everyday center fielder in a World Series team.
I don't. I agree with you.
All right. Well, I know we have some time limits here. Do you want to try one more thing or wait?
Yeah, I can. I actually got an extra 5 minutes before I have to roll here. But so I don't know if you saw, I did this lengthy story this week on Crossing Broad, kind of looking at a bunch of guys around Major League Baseball who used to play for the Phillies and no longer do. And I just wanted to kind of, you know, touch on a couple of them with you, Bob, and kind of say, you know, would you wish that guy were still here, or are you good with the fact that they're not here? And I know a couple of these will be tongue in cheek, but I think some of them are an interesting question. So I want to start. Actually, I'm going to start with an interesting one up in Baltimore. Cole Irvin has been really good for them. 6-2, 287, 118 whip. Like, what the heck? I never thought that he would amount to anything. I thought he was a soft tossing lefty who didn't have much of anything. And he's actually been pretty good. He was decent in Oakland, and then he's now with one of the best teams in baseball.
2019, the Phillies had so little starting pitching depth. It was Aaron Nola, and, you know, it was just so tough to watch.
Yeah.
And Cole Irvin was, like, to me, like the quintessential, like, oh, God, this guy today. Like, I want to say I might be misremembering this, but I feel like it might have been like Father's Day. Cole Irvin that year pitched a game where I was like, please, no more of this. We cannot do this. This is not a major league pitcher. And to his credit, you know, 5 years later, he's out there doing it. He had a couple decent years for the A's too. So
yeah,
good for him.
Good for him, right?
I don't want him back, but
no. But here's a guy that I think you look at and say, if you had a chance to undo this trade, would you have? Matt Vierling.
Yeah, he's had a nice season for the Tigers. He's done a nice job. Was watching a game a few weeks ago. They played the Blue Jays. It was a wild back and forth game. Yeah. They actually intentionally walked the guy to get to him, and he hit a walk-off grand slam. It was great. He's had a nice year, and he's obviously a good athlete and go run down a couple balls and gaps. Like I like Matt Vierling.
Well, he would be exactly like
if he was Soto. Yeah, I'd probably undo that one.
Well, I'm just saying. Well, so it was Vierling and Maton for Soto and Cody Clemens.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, if you're talking about having that extra right-handed outfielder right now, like that, he would be a guy that would be a nice fit for this team at this point in my mind. So,
by the way, Anthony, Father's Day 2019 was June 16th against the Braves. Cole Irvin did pitch that game, so I did remember this right.
Yeah.
3 2/3 innings, 9 hits, 6 earned runs. That had moved his ERA after 5 starts to 6.84. So, I have a really weird memory, and I did actually peg that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, here's one for you. Have you taken a look at the Mick?
Yeah.
And what his stats are?
Yes, I have.
He has the lowest on-base percentage of any qualified hitter in Major League Baseball at 211. Yeah. He's hitting 172. His OPS is 452, and he's playing pretty regularly because of injuries in Anaheim, or Los Angeles with the Angels. Like,
you know,
you have a higher WAR than Mickey Moniak.
Yeah, he's hitting 189 against right-handed pitching this year. That was the whole thing, right? That he was going to be this force against right-handed pitching, and the Phillies really, really screwed up. He's got a 501 OPS against righties this year. They don't even let him hit. They don't even honestly trust him to even try against left-handed pitching. He's 0 for 8.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I got 2 more for you. Because this one I think was a win-win for both teams. St. Louis, Jojo Romero.
Yeah, he's done a nice job.
3-1, 1.91 ERA, 0.82 WHIP, 32 strikeouts and 4 walks in 33 innings. It's very Matt Strahm-like.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously he's the guy that the Phillies traded to St. Louis for Edmundo Sosa. So I think it was kind of a good swap for both teams. But man, that's a nice left-handed arm that you could like to have in the pen, huh?
Yeah, I would do that deal again. I have no hesitation to do that deal. But it is one of those rare ones where it has worked out for both sides.
Yeah. And here's the last one, and probably one that most people don't even think about. Chicago Cubs. Phillies traded a 33rd round pick in 2017 by the name of Ben Brown.
Yeah.
For David Robertson a couple years ago. And Ben Brown has now made 8 starts for the Cubs this year. He's appeared in 15 games, but he's made 8 starts. He's only 1-3, but a 3.58 ERA, 1.084 WHIP, 64 strikeouts and just 19 walks and 53 in the third innings. I think that's a win for the Cubs.
It is. If you've paid attention to his ascension here, you could see it coming too. Like he's been somebody that they were feeling like very optimistic about, and they felt like we might have pulled a fast one here. Although, did you see David Robertson last night? I believe against the Dodgers, wiping out Betts, Freeman, and Ohtani.
Yeah, I saw
First and third, nobody out. He strikes out all 3 of them. D-Rob, he was a disaster here.
He might be available again at the deadline.
Nice guy too, and he was really well liked in the clubhouse and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But like it just didn't.
It didn't work. No. Didn't work. Heard himself celebrating. Yes. You remember that?
Up the steps in the dugout. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Thanks for that trip down memory lane. I'm surprised it didn't include our friend Nick Pivetta and Vince Velasquez. Well,
Velasquez hasn't pitched in majors this year. We just saw Pivetta the other night.
What's he doing?
I don't know. I didn't even look him up. He's not in the majors this year. He got hurt last year with the Pirates, and it's not been back. So I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't know where he's at. But yeah, it was like 42 names that are currently active in major leagues.
Wow. Okay.
Played for the Phillies. So.
All right. Yeah. I don't know what Vinny Velo is up to right now. I guess I should, but maybe is he out of the sport? Is he donezo?
I don't know. Could be.
Yeah, I mean he's not no minors stats this year, so maybe I missed the retirement ceremony. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, listen, for Anthony Sanfilippo and Bob Wankel, you can follow Anthony on X at AntSanPhilly. You can follow me at Bob_Wankel. Make sure that you're following the show account at UpPhillies. You can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, whatever it's called, Google Music.
No, it's Amazon Music, YouTube Music. YouTube ate up Google.
Love it. All right, well, you know where to get the shows. If you're listening to us, make sure that you're subscribing. We'll talk to you soon.